today on Christian World News, a European High Court issues mixed rulings in religious discrimination cases. We'll tell you what it means for the Christians trying to live out their faith.
Plus, taking the fight to radical Islamists in Africa. Al-Qaeda-linked rebels take control of northern Mali. Now France is waging a military campaign to drive them out. And
Cuba loosens its grip. Reforms in the communist nation are opening doors for freedom to travel and freedom to worship. A European court issues landmark rulings on religious freedom. Hello, everyone. I'm George Thomas.
And I'm Wendy Griffith.
Well, this week's Europe's highest court issued a mixed bag of rulings about the ways Christians can live out their faith in the workplace. Our UK correspondent Peter Wooding reports from London.
The European Court of Human Rights has ruled that the UK had failed to protect the freedom of a British Airways worker to wear her cross to work. But they rejected the case of Christian nurse Shirley Chaplin, who was refused the right to wear her cross for health and safety reasons. Following the rulings, British Prime Minister David Cameron said he was delighted that the principle of wearing religious symbols at work had been upheld, adding that people shouldn't suffer discrimination due to religious beliefs. However, Chaplin, whose case is being supported by the Christian Legal Centre, says she's very disappointed that her religious principles weren't being upheld.
I feel very saddened that my views are not considered as worthy as others, that my right to manifest my faith in my workplace has been denied me.
Despite her case being rejected, Chaplin is encouraged by the court's decision to acknowledge that the cross is a Christian symbol.
I'm really, really grateful that the European Court has upheld the principle that a cross actually represents the Christian faith, which the government, for some reason, seemed to feel that this was not so.
So what have people on the streets of London been saying about Chaplin's case?
No, I think people should be allowed to express their religious views, and by all accounts it didn't hurt anyone, so that should be allowed.
I think that it's cruel if she loses her job.
It's her own religious belief. No one has any right or any power to challenge someone about their religious beliefs.
Two other cases of Christian workers were rejected by the European Court of Human Rights, including that of relationship counsellor Gary McFarlane. McFarlane was sacked for saying he might not be comfortable giving sex counselling to homosexual couples, but he says he's not disappointed by today's decision.
I think the disappointment will come if people do not look at this judgment and recognise that this could affect you in whatever sphere of employment you are in.
And the Christian Legal Centre's Andrea Williams says they won't give up on these cases.
We will be appealing them to the Grand Chamber. I will not cease, we will not cease until justice is done.
Many believers remain deeply concerned that the European Court's rulings means these freedoms remain in the balance. Peter Wooding for CBN News, London, England.
Thanks, Peter. And here with us now is Greg Muscleman of the Voice of the Martyrs Canada. He's written a brand new book called Closer to the Fire, Lessons from the Persecuted Church. And Greg, we see persecution happening in Europe. Is it coming here to North America?
Well, I think it's actually already here, Wendy, when you look at some of the things that are happening. I mean, I have personal friends that have been threatened by groups that they're opposed to the Christian message. We've heard of one believer that had converted from Islam and became a Christian in a Canadian city that was killed. So, then there's the cultural aspects of it as well, and the way that Christianity is treated in the media. And in Canada, even to say anything against another religion is considered hate speech in some cases. And even for us, with our message of talking about Christians being persecuted and mentioning the persecutors can even get us in trouble. So I would say, it's already here, and I think it will intensify.
Now, we're seeing Islamic extremism on the rise all over the world, especially in Africa and in Nigeria specifically. And you have a Bible that is stained with blood from Nigeria. Tell us the story.
Right. This got this Bible last spring, and a year ago in January of last year, there was an attack on a church in a place called Gombe City in Gombe State, a group called the Boko Haram, and I know you reported many times on that Islamic group. And they went into the Deeper Life Bible Church. It was a midweek prayer meeting. 40 people had gathered, and 3 young men from the Boko Haram opened fire on the Christians and killed 10 people. 2 young boys were killed.
The person who owns this Bible, they survived.
Yes, his name was Yakubu. He did survive. As mentioned, 10 were killed, 24 were injured, and Yakubu was shot in the waist area, and his blood is on the Bible. And actually, when the shooting occurred, they were actually praying for the nation of Nigeria and had been praying for the Boko Haram.
And they're tied to Al-Qaeda.
Right, yeah, you've got this militant Islam that's been spreading throughout Nigeria, especially in the north, and then it's even now coming to the central part in Plateau State, which is considered kind of the fault line between the Christian south and the Muslim north. And so there's many Christian organizations that have been doing evangelism into the north, and as a result, they've been getting attacked.
This looks fascinating. Closer to the Fire, Lessons from the Persecuted Church, just out. Tell us, what can we learn? Lessons from the persecuted church.
Well, there's, I could go on for a long time, but there's many things. I think the thing that we can learn is that God is at work no matter what. And I know in a North American kind of culture, God will bless us, He'll prosper us. But you see believers that are suffering and dying because of the relationship with Jesus Christ. And, we can learn forgiveness, and that even in the most horrendous situations, the Lord still can turn things around for good. And they're sold out aspects of being a follower of Christ. And even though we don't face maybe the physical violence that they're facing in Nigeria, and Iran, Iraq, those places, but we still need to have that same passion.
In 15 seconds, what's the common denominator among persecuted Christians around the world?
I think for the most part, their love for Jesus Christ and their desire to see the kingdom of God spread, and they have an eternal perspective that this isn't how it ends. Our Lord is returning someday, and we can learn a lot from them, and we need to help and care for them.
All right. Now, the book is called Closer to the Fire, Lessons from the Persecuted Church. And to find out how to get it, you can go to our website, that's cbnnews.com. Greg, it's great to see you in the studio. We appreciate your stories from around the world and your work with the persecuted church.
Well, it's good to be with you, Wendy and George, and the rest of the team here. Love your ministry, and thank you for what you guys do.
All right. God bless.
God
George,
bless.
over to you.
Thanks. One more item about radical Islam in France. France is fighting a radical Muslim group in the African nation of Mali. The Islamist rebels took over northern Mali last year and in recent weeks began a push for the capital. The international community doesn't want Mali to become a training ground for Al-Qaeda, while locals fear the imposition of Sharia law. Now backed by other European nations and the US, the French military is beating back the rebels with airstrikes and ground action. Backed by heavy French military air support, Malian and French soldiers pounded Islamist targets in Mali. Dozens of French fighter planes hit rebel targets in the northern cities of Gao and Kidal.
We are facing a clear aggression. I have therefore decided that France will respond.
France began its military offensive last week to stop Islamist rebels from advancing on Bamako, the capital of Mali. Al-Qaeda-linked rebels had control of northern Mali since April and began advancing south, prompting fears they could gain new territory.
It is the security in the region of France, of Europe, which is at stake.
Despite the gains, rebels launched counterattacks inching closer to the capital. Fighting in the western part of the country has been particularly fierce. The UN expects the fighting will drive hundreds of thousands of Malian refugees to neighboring countries. Those who have already left say they fear the Islamist rebels will institute Sharia law. An aid worker in Mali tells CBN News that most Christians have already fled rebel-controlled areas and churches have been destroyed.
In Timbuktu, I know personally a pastor who is in this situation. They are even occupying his own house today. They are occupying the church, they are occupying the house, and they say that they are looking for him.
Islamists promised to drag France into an Afghanistan-style ground war in Mali. The leader of the rebel group also vowed to strike at the heart of France.
Security has been stepped up across French cities. Meanwhile, French intervention in the conflict has been welcomed by many of those who fled their homes after Islamists took over.
We look forward to when this situation can be resolved so that we can return to the village to rebuild what has been destroyed.
And my colleague Gary Lane has more about how this war is affecting Mali's Christian community. You can learn all about it at his blog, The Global Lane, at cbnnews.com.
And coming up, it was the blast heard around the world. A package bomb gravely injured this Messianic Jewish boy. How the family forgave their attacker and moved forward in faith.
CWNews.org, your constant news source on the World Wide Web. Find daily updates on the global church. Watch the weekly broadcast.
3 former presidents come together to honor the life and ministry.
Also available in podcast. Read in-depth insights into our reporter blogs.
Taliban kidnapped at least 18 South Korean Christians.
Your online news source for complete coverage of the global church.
Today, many people are asking, what is the future for America? I believe God created this country to be an exceptional nation with a divine purpose. God has a plan, not only for the redemption of mankind, not only for the people of Israel, but for the United States of America.
Get Pat Robertson's newest DVD teaching, God's Plan for America, How to Prepare for the Days Ahead. In it, you'll discover how America is built on a Christian foundation, how America became the greatest country on earth, and what we can do to see the favor of God bless our land.
There is still an opportunity to enter into a period of unprecedented prosperity and national blessing if we will grasp hold of the plan God has for each one of us.
Pat Robertson's God's Plan for America. It's our gift to you when you join the 700 Club. Available now.
It began in a prayer meeting where a covenant was made and grew into the most powerful and prosperous nation the world has ever known. But has America broken its covenant with God? Can that covenant be renewed? Does God still have a plan for America?
Welcome back to the broadcast. An Iranian-American pastor imprisoned in Iran is set to go on trial January 21st. Officers arrested 32-year-old Saeed Abidini in September for his work in Iran's underground Christian community. The trial has been given to a judge who is notorious for handing out harsh sentences. Saeed says he's been told he will hang for his faith. The American Center for Law and Justice is fighting for his release. Jordan Secular of the ACLJ says it's time for the U.S. to act on the behalf of Saeed.
We did not see any real action from the State Department until last week, when finally the media's attention on this had shamed them into saying, we're actually concerned about the matter. All they had done before, they said they were aware of it, but they have still fallen short of calling for an American citizen's release.
To view the entire interview and find out how you can help, visit our website, cbnnews.com.
Our viewers may recall the story of Ami Ortiz. Several years ago, Ami nearly died when he opened a package bomb disguised as a Purim gift. The family was targeted because of their Christian faith. Now, an Israeli court has convicted the man who sent that bomb. Chris Mitchell has the story.
American-born Jack Title walked into the courtroom to hear the judge's verdict. Inside, they convicted him of murdering 2 Palestinians in separate attacks in 1997.
Today's decision was very comforting for us. It came too late because we waited 15 years to hear such a decision.
The court found Title, dubbed the Jewish terrorist, was not insane and held him criminally responsible for his actions. They also convicted him of other violent crimes, including the attempted murder of 15-year-old Ami Ortiz in March 2008. Ortiz nearly died in that attack when he opened a Purim gift basket delivered to his family's home. He miraculously survived and returned to the basketball court. The attack was directed against the Ortizes because of their faith in Jesus. Ami's mother, Leah, a Messianic Jew, said even though her son still suffers physically from the attack, the family moved on a long time ago.
From the very beginning, we understood that we had to forgive him, and the Lord did a work of forgiveness in our hearts. He really gave me the love of God for even this person, and commissioned me to pray for him and pray for his salvation.
At the end, there's always justice for God because he's the final judge. So I feel peace. I really feel peace.
In an earlier interview with CBN News, Ami said he prays for Title.
I'm praying and hoping that in his time in jail, he'll think about it and understand and realize that he's done some pretty serious mistakes and he needs to repent.
Have you forgiven him?
Oh yeah, like I said before in the interviews, from the beginning there was no hate for nobody.
Whenever I see my son's body and I see the effects of his injuries, I die inside personally. But we just bring it before the Lord and we keep on going forward.
After the bombing, letters and support flooded the Ortizes from around the world.
We have people that supported us, and I believe if it wasn't for the prayers, and if people wouldn't support us, we wouldn't be able to stand. We're standing here because of the body of the Lord.
Title left the court as he entered it in chains. He's likely to be sentenced to life in prison. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Up next, a revolution is brewing just 90 miles off America's coast. Find out why change is coming to Cuba when we come back.
CBNnews.com. News you want, when you want, 24/7. Stay current with up-to-the-minute stories.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News, New York.
I don't have to wait for my news anymore. CBNnews.com at your fingertips all day long.
I only watch the stories I want to see.
I find the story, I click on it, and boom, I'm there.
Embassy in Washington, Eric Stackelbeck, CBN News.
The source for your news, CBNnews.com.
Give me that. Bye. Sure, life is busy, but I found a way to make a huge difference in people's lives. I guess you could say I'm changing the world right here from home. I bring medical supplies and doctors to people in need, and dig wells so that villagers can have clean and safe water to drink. I make it possible to preach the gospel in over 100 countries, including right here in America. And when disaster strikes, I'm there, providing food, thank you, and emergency supplies to give people hope again. Every day, CBN and I are making the world a better place. Here you go. My life is hectic, so I joined CBN through Pledge Express. My bank does all the work, and I know that my gift is being used where it's needed most. So become a CBN partner and join Pledge Express, because you can do a world of good right from where you are. Hi, good morning. Are you ready to get started?
When you care, souls are set free. When you give, lives are made new. When you share, eternal life begins. When we all come together to love, miracles happen.
A highly anticipated new law took effect in Cuba this week, ending the country's hated exit visa requirement. Cubans formed long lines outside travel agencies and migration offices in Havana Monday. The new law means the end of obstacles to travel by those living on the island. Most Cubans are now eligible to leave the country with just a current passport and national identity card, like residents of other countries.
Compared to before, when the process was very difficult and took a long time, and we had to wait for an exit visa and an invitation and spending money, now we can save all that.
The governments of other countries now largely control who can travel from Cuba. They will determine who receives entry visas. In many cases, Cubans, like those from most other developing countries, will still find it tough to get visas from wealthier nations like the U.S. Well, for more than 50 years, being a Christian in Cuba was an invitation to persecution.
But the communist nation is now becoming much more open, as Chuck Holton reports. Big changes have been taking place.
When Fidel Castro took power in Cuba, communism gained a foothold in the Western Hemisphere. The U.S. responded with an embargo, effectively cutting off the island nation from American goods and services. In the 50 years since, more than 1 million Cuban citizens have escaped the repression brought on by what is known here as the revolution. Today, the average Cuban citizen still can't change jobs without government permission, and an unauthorized internet connection could land you in jail. The government owns most businesses, and the average citizen makes only about $15 a month. Change happens very slowly in this authoritarian country, but it is coming. Some would say out of necessity.
You know, it's surprising how little has changed here in downtown Havana, Cuba, since the embargo began in the early 1960s. But one thing that is changing is the area of religious freedom. It's kind of surprising for a socialist country.
What we had in Cuba was a very hard time for the church. Almost 30 years that we suffered discrimination for our faith in Jesus Christ.
But things have changed dramatically in the last few years, and the church is staging a comeback.
I think that the Cuban government believes that the gospel is good for the nation of Cuba. And for that reason, they are asking the church in Cuba to help the Cuban government to bring back again the great value of the Cuban family.
In the past, being a Christian here all but guaranteed a very hard life. Persecution was the rule, with church leaders routinely imprisoned or driven out of the country. Those attitudes started to change when Raul Castro was elected in 2009. He promised to move the country away from some of the old communist policies, especially towards religion.
In 3 years, from 12 prayer groups, now we have 103 prayer groups in this area. Several years ago, this could not happen, but now this is possible by the miracle of God, because I think that is the time for Cuba.
We saw in times past many rigid things that we thought would never be broken, but now we're seeing a great harvest of souls in Cuba.
The church is also making inroads in the public schools, where they've been given permission to teach children the basics of moral principle, something unheard of even in America today. Some locals attribute this to economic reasons. The government sees the church as a cheaper way to carry out social programs. But these church members believe there are deeper reasons.
The people love us because we are bringing a message of love, of peace, of healing.
We've gone around to various places bringing food and clothing to those in need. And over 100 children have received Christ through what we've done so far.
And this leads to a new challenge.
We need Bibles. We need help with our budget to complete the work that is being done here.
I think that the main thing is pray for us. And you can help with Bibles because sometimes the church grow up very fast and we have not enough material, enough tools.
The Christians in Cuba are doing their best to take advantage of their newfound freedoms and spread the gospel to the entire country.
God is doing this in a special way for Cuba. It's the special time for Cuba.
Chuck Holton, CBN News, Havana, Cuba.
And you can celebrate with our Cuban brothers by sharing this story with others. Simply visit our Christian World News Facebook and click and share. We'll be back right after this.
Hi, this is Pat Robertson. This is an important time in the history of America. It's an important time in the history of CBN. And what you do is so very important now. But we've got to get the gospel out here in America. We've got to help the poor and the needy, feed those who are hungry, clothe those who are naked, bring medical attention to those who are suffering, and more than anything, bring hope to those who are without hope throughout the world. So your 700 Club membership makes a huge difference. And I ask you to go to your phone and call. If you haven't already called in, we appreciate what you've done so much.
So don't slack. We don't want our hands to be empty. We want to say, Lord, here are those who have come to you because of my labors. Telephones are available, toll-free line, and we just thank God for each one of you. So don't hesitate to call and do it now. When you give, smiles grow bigger. When you care, homes are happier. When you comfort, the hurt goes away. When we all come together to love, miracles happen.
Christian World News, your window to the global church. For stories of revival,
another revival,
persecution,
relatives and fellow Christians mourn him.
The first country over the international date
I'm
line.
Coach Thomas in Baghdad, and coming up on the broadcast, an exclusive interview.
and the impact of Christian leaders. Watch Christian World News.
And finally on our show this week, CBN Indonesia is giving free cleft and hernia surgeries to suffering children. The majority are from poor Muslim families.
Yeah, the ministry says the surgeries are their way of showing them God's love by giving their children a better future. Lucille Toulousan reports.
2-year-old Irfan is crying because of the pain caused by hernia. The condition is very painful and can be life-threatening.
I was hopeless because we barely have money to buy food. How much more to pay for the surgery? And so when CBN came to our village and informed us about the free surgery, I registered Irfan right away.
Irfan and other Muslim children were taken from their villages to the CBN headquarters in the city.
These people not only get free surgeries, but they're also given free transportation, free lodging and meals. And this is CBN's way of showing God's love among our Muslim friends.
Non Rawong heads the CBN outreach in Indonesia.
Those people, I would say 99% are Muslims. These people are from a radical Muslim group. But we say that you are here because of miracle. And who can perform the miracle is Isa al-Masih, because it's stated in your book that he performed miracle, he healed the sick, he raised the dead. Isa al-Masih is the one that makes us do all this and help you extend the love of Isa al-Masih to you.
I would like to say a million thanks to CBN for your care and compassion to help low-class people like us. I am now happy and relieved that my son is healed. Now he has a big chance to be healthy and successful in the future.
Not only are the physical conditions of these children changed, but their families and even their communities as well, as they see that their problems can be solved. They learn to see life more positively. And because of the good results, more people come to CBN for help, which only means more opportunities for the organization to share God's love to them. Lucille Toulousan, CBN News, Jakarta.
Well, we are done for this week, and
You know, I was thinking about this cleft lip surgery. So,
Yeah.
have you ever seen a more dramatic transformation?
Incredible.
I mean, it's amazing what those doctors can do.
We sure can.
It's
And
wonderful.
they do it in the name of Jesus Christ. Hey, go to our Facebook page to get more information and stories and pictures and so forth. Thank you so much for joining us.
Go to mine.
Go to hers.
You go to
Thanks for
Jordan's.
joining us this week, folks.
We'll see you next week. Goodbye, and God bless you.